it takes courage to be able to select people around you, whether it be around the board table or the executive leadership team, who are prepared to challenge the status quo and challenge your point of view.
A beautiful story that I'll never forget of a shiploader operator when I was the GM at the Rio Tinto iron ore ports. And I went up to the shiploader operator. I was just doing some safety interactions and she just had this massive smile on her face.
You need to win in the workplace before you can win in the marketplace. How do you go about winning the hearts and minds of your people?
Continuing to learn and grow and be challenged in different commodities and learning different things, but not always chasing the promotion, because the promotion doesn't necessarily bring you happiness. It's the work that you do and feeling fulfilled by it.
What are the downsides of deploying AI technologies?
Oh, gosh.
Marnie Finlayson, welcome to Hearts and Minds.
Thank you for having me.
Very nice to see you. I was talking with an old Guildford Grammar School mate the other day who happens to be your brother, and I invited him onto the podcast. He said, yeah, I'd love to do it, but I want to be the headline act. So maybe get my sister Marnie to be the warm-up act for me. So I'm wondering if you've got anything to say to Raoul.
That is a very interesting comment. So what would I say to Raoul? I'd say to Raoul, just be careful of the warm-up act and when it might become the headline act. And I did a bit of research on that, and I found out that in the 1970s, Roy Orbison took a little-known band on tour with him as his warm-up act. By the end of that tour, the Beatles were doing the final song of the tour. So just be very careful, Raoul.
There is a precedent there.
There is.
Do you often remind Raoul that you're on the board of a $30-odd billion market cap company and he's on the board of a $6 billion company?
We don't talk much about that. There is lots of competition in our family, but tends to be more around AFL. He's an Adelaide Crows supporter. I'm a St Kilda supporter, and the rest of the family are Eagles. So it tends to be more about AFL than anything else, really.
High achieving family.
Yes.
You remind me a bit of the Gaines sisters, Jo Allison and Elizabeth. I've had the privilege of meeting each of them, and they are so intensely competitive in their own space, but united as siblings. It's a beautiful thing.
It is, yeah. It's nice to have a close family around you.
Let's review your CV briefly, Marnie, for those of our audience who might not be all that familiar with your background. You're a minerals processing engineer with extensive senior leadership and operational experience across a range of commodities, so iron ore, gold, uranium, battery metals and rare earths. You had a long career at Rio Tinto, culminating in the role of Managing Director of Rio's battery metals materials business. You also played an important role in implementing recommendations from the company's landmark workplace culture review. And since 2022, you've served as a non-executive director on Australia's biggest gold producer, Northern Star Resources. And last year you were appointed Managing Director of uranium explorer DevEx Resources under the chairmanship of Tim Goyder. I should also say congratulations on recently receiving the Champion of Women in Resources Award from the Chamber of Minerals and Energy.
Thank you.
So quite a CV, Marnie.
Thank you.
So very, very privileged to have you on the show today. Let's get to know you a little bit. What can you tell us about your early formative years?
Early years. So we grew up on a sheep station north of Kalgoorlie. So my parents ran the station. Dad was sort of the chief team leader, and Mum really looked after us and the staff on the station to run that property. It was a hard upbringing. We learnt very strong values very early around hard work and the expectation to put in to get out, which we've all carried through our careers. The sense of team and working together to achieve, particularly in challenging times. And it's something that if I have a look at my older brother Daniel, who works in the crayfishing business, he builds pots for crayfishermen, and the period of time that he went through when there were quotas put on that really impacted the business. But how he really rose to that challenge and looked at other ways to build income out of that business during that time. There's a real sense of rising to a challenge and overcoming those obstacles as a family that we learnt. And the final thing that was really strong, and we definitely all carry into what we do today, is a strong sense of community and connection to country and to land.
Yeah.
So wherever we are, that understanding that country is really precious to someone. Where we grew up is still very precious to us. But it's the traditional lands of a whole bunch of Aboriginal people who still are connected to that country. And that was something that we learned. We had a wonderful Aboriginal man working with us at the station who taught us a lot about that. He taught me how to track. He taught me how to cook a routail on a fire. So we learnt a lot through that time that has built the values and what's important to us as individuals, but also as a family.
Yeah, fabulous. So 3 siblings, Raoul, Daniel and yourself?
Yes, I'm in the middle.
Yeah.
And I'm the only girl. So Dad would always be taking the boys out mustering and I would be... You stay home with your mother and you can do the housework. And I just wanted to prove that I was just as good as the boys. So that's where the competitive nature comes from, proving that I was just as good as them and could match them at everything.
So Outback community, what about education? How did you go to school?
We did School of the Air. So that was a fantastic institution, big call out to that, who's been able to educate thousands, hundreds of thousands of children around Australia. And so we all did that until about year 6, year 7, and then we were sent off to boarding school, which for us was a whole new world after being in an isolated station with, the only time you actually saw or spoke to your school friends was half an hour each day, or the annual camp, which was always fun. Then to go into a boarding house environment, which was all girls or all boys and a long way from home. In those days, there were 13, 14-week terms, and so we were away from home for that period of time. And then going back to the station, and Dad would have lined up all of the station jobs because it was a hard life to happen while we were home because he would say cheap, we would say free labour. He did pay us a nominal amount, so we were able to buy our own cars when we got our licenses. But we went home to work, and we'd end up going back to school exhausted after being up at 4 a.m. and doing mustering or shearing.
Did you enjoy school, and if so, what did you enjoy about it?
I loved it. I loved the first couple of years. I was homesick, and the change of environment was tricky. But then I just threw myself into everything. Every afternoon, I was playing sport or doing some form of extracurricular activity. And through that built quite a strong social network. So I was also very social and enjoyed actually the schoolwork side of it. I really liked maths and sciences, so really sort of threw myself into everything that the school could offer. So I was very lucky to be able to have that opportunity. And parents worked very hard to be able to do that. Yeah.
So you went to St Hilda's.
Yes.
And the boys went to Guildford Grammar School.
They did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we didn't hardly see each other during the term either because it was a long way away from each other. So we were quite isolated, and everything that was lining up at the phone box and feeding in your 40 cents to be able to make a phone call was the only way to communicate or write letters.
Yeah, I remember those days well.
Yes.
Was there anybody in those years, those school-age years, where somebody who had a significant impact in terms of influencing your thinking and possibly who shaped the person you were to become?
This has been an interesting reflection for me. When I got told quite early in my boarding school years by mainly my cousins, if you write a letter to Grandpa, and this is my father's dad was living in Esperance at the time, and he's an engineer, civil engineer. If you write a letter to Grandpa, he'll write back a great letter, but he also sends money. So I cracked onto this and thought, I'll write him a letter, every week, see how I go, fund my activities in Perth. What I learnt out of that, I learnt so much from the letters that he wrote to me, and over time through our letter writing, our bond became really strong, and I've still got some of the letters today that he sent to me. So he was absolutely a really influential person during school that overcame some difficulties I was having around friendship groups, and I think just the lost art of letter writing is such a beautiful art where you can really express how you're feeling and get that response back. So it was it was a beautiful relationship, and he's had a really big influence on my younger life.
That's a lovely reflection. And you're right, the art of letter writing is pretty much dead, I would think. Certainly, apart from the older generations, perhaps.
Yeah.
But I remember as a boy, my parents, we emigrated as a family from England, and I remember the old aerograms that my mother used to write to her mother and receive in return. It was a different world.
Yeah, on the really thin paper,
yes,
so it didn't cost
correct.
too much to post it.
Exactly right.
Yes, I
very
remember
light, very light they were.
My daughter I was lucky enough to be able to give her the opportunity to study at Timbertop. So this was 4 years ago, and there they don't have phones, and the only way to communicate is letter writing.
Yeah.
And the way that strengthened my relationship with her through, once again, expressing emotions and how we were feeling via the pen was amazing. It was, a really beautiful experience for both of us.
Timbertop's in Victoria.
In Victoria, it's part of Geelong Grammar.
That's
and
right.
It's outback. They no phones, and there's lots of hiking and lots of outdoor activities to sort of build resilience and leadership. And it was a wonderful year for her.
Yeah, I bet. So you mentioned that you were focused perhaps or had a leaning towards the sciences at school. So was that, when did you form the intention to join the mining industry through becoming an engineer?
Yes, I wasn't thinking about it at school, so that's definitely a challenge as an industry to sort of get STEM-related subjects and resources in people's minds as they're making their choices. But I definitely knew it was an engineering. Yeah. I thought mechanical engineering. I loved sport. That was my whole life, and I felt that I could do mechanical engineering, and I was going to design bionic knees and things like that to support people to continue with mobility. So that was my big dream. I had a little bit too much fun in year 12 and didn't quite receive the mark to get into that. And I was like, okay, so what do I do now? And through sort of friends and other network, heard about the School of Mines in Kalgoorlie.
Yep.
Being able to actually be closer to home was the opportunity. And in order to prepare myself for that, I was really lucky enough to get some vacation work in Leonora ahead of starting. So it was the holidays before starting at the School of Mines. And I shoveled under a crusher for 12 hours every day for 3 months. And I absolutely loved it. From the minute I stepped on that site, that sense of team, being able to prove myself in a male environment.
Yeah. And
achievement and the culture that you feel on a mine site and seeing what you've done at the end of the day to deliver something, I knew straight away it was the sector for me. And I was really lucky throughout my 4 years at WASM to have opportunities through scholarships and other connections to continue that throughout my degree. So by the time I actually finished at WASM, I had about 2 years of actual practical experience on mine sites under my belt. And every single one of those just continued to reinforce that it was definitely the industry for me. I love being outdoors. I love being in regional areas. I love achieving something and producing something at the end of it. And the biggest thing for me is working in a team and being able to be a part of that type of environment.
I've heard so many good stories about WASM, and Darren Strallo, who was on the podcast a few weeks ago and is now, I believe, the president of the alumni.
He is.
Spoke so affectionately about, how it really shaped him as a human being.
Absolutely. And the networks you have from that. So with Daz and other alumni, we work really closely together now to continue to make sure that continues. It's such an important institution for our industry, and attracting more people to go there, to experience it, and for us to sponsor it through scholarships and mentoring, and also support graduates coming out of it as well to live their best lives and to deliver what they can to the industry.
That's so important because even though Darren said to me when he was on the podcast that the numbers are picking up, but we've certainly had a deficit, haven't we, in terms of tertiary qualified people in the mining industry coming through.
Yeah, and it's one of the biggest challenges that we have as the resource sector. If you have a look at the world and if you look at sort of the global sort of indexes now, I think resources in equities is probably only about 1.5% of the global index because of the Mag 7 and the influence of technology and AI. But the relevance of the resource sector is growing even more because all of these copper, lithium, uranium is required to support technology and AI and growth. So that being able to translate that, and a beautiful story that I'll never forget of a shiploader operator when I was the GM at the Rio Tinto iron ore ports. And I went up to the shiploader operator. I was just doing some safety interactions, and she just had this massive smile on her face. And I said, just tell me about what you're doing. And she said, Marnie, I love what I do because I know that I'm loading this ship full of iron ore, and this one's going to China, and it's about bringing people out of poverty. It's about growth. she really could connect to what she was doing and the purpose of it. Yes. And it's something for me that is so important in our sector, is to remind everyone why they do what they do and to connect them to a greater purpose, which purposes are personal, but helping people have those do that thinking to understand and connect their work so it actually brings them joy and is purposeful is so important into the future that we're going into. And I definitely see it coming through in my children. That purpose is important. So how do we help people find that within the resource sector? And I think definitely connecting to AI and technology, it's a wonderful world, and we're going to be critical for that happening.
Yeah, it's so true. And helping people to find their why, as people often say these days, is so critically important, and we'll talk more about AI and its impact, negative and positive, a little bit later. When you're not concentrating on work, and you must be a very busy person, what do you do to relax?
Well, I also am in a blended family of 5 children, so there's 7 of us in the house, and it's crazy, chaotic, and I absolutely love it. So there's not a lot of relaxation going on there, but there's a lot of joy from that environment. But to relax, I do exercise every morning, so I either run or go to the gym. I've just started to take up boxing, which is fun.
Wow.
And then the relaxation side of it, after that exercise, I throw myself in the ocean, and this morning I went, it was 3 degrees, so it was very refreshing.
3 degrees. It's currently about 10 degrees, audience, but 3 degrees, it must have been frigid.
It was, but it's exhilarating. So we throw ourselves in the ocean and have a coffee, and then I'm set for the day.
Wow.
I also do yoga. Yoga's my weekend zen. Love to sort of be calm, and I'm very busy and energetic, so I need to balance that. So yoga brings me balance. Yeah. And I do love to read. And when I read, sorry about this, I don't read business books. I read enough of that during my work time. It's fiction, and I would go through, I think, at least a book every 2 weeks. I love to read.
What genre of fiction?
Anything. Do you know, I think I quite like historical fiction.
Right.
There's the story of the 100-year-old man who climbed out the window and disappeared. Have you read that?
I've read it. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's a Swedish or Scandinavian author.
It is. So those types of books I love because it references history, but also with a fictional overlay. And I quite like those styles of books.
Yeah, great. As we said before, you're both a board director and an executive leader. What does leadership mean to you?
Oh, gosh. Number one, it's about being authentic and being who you are in whichever environment that you are. Number 2, for me, it's about providing vision, objective, purpose, the why. So why are we doing what we're doing, and why you're leading that. Then it's building a team, and I've definitely learnt this more and more later in my career about selecting a team, firstly, that is definitely not like you. I used to recruit Marnies, and that was, I loved it because everyone agreed with me, but it definitely didn't get the best outcomes. So diverse teams, finding, either through experience or skill sets that I don't have, that we've got a sort of a vision and what we're trying to create, so gaps that I have to make sure they're filled. And then the other piece of that is people that think differently. And the power of different thinking, and it's really hard as a leader. Like you can create that and you can set up that environment, but unless you're facilitating the constructive conversations about that, so people are valuing differences and respecting each other's voices, it probably just ends up in conflict. So that is a difficult thing to do. But when you get it right, and you have to continue work to get it right, it is so powerful. And I look at the team that I work with at DevEx now, and you would see my face light up when I talk about them. The team there are so different, and none of it works without one of us. So it's like the match works and it's magic, but if one's not there, it doesn't work. So everyone contributes. Everyone has a very different perspective and listens to each other, and the outcomes of it is great. And you actually have a lot of fun. Yeah. And for me, it's creating that sense of team, achievement, and enjoy what you do, because our lives are too short to spend time not enjoying our work. So just have fun and enjoy it.
You raise some really good points there, and a lot of people do talk about diversity. Naturally, there's a focus on gender or maybe ethnicity diversity, but it seems to me that diversity of point of view is the most important thing. Yeah. And I think it takes courage to be able to select people around you, whether it be around the board table or the executive leadership team, who are prepared to challenge the status quo and challenge your point of view. It takes courage, because a lot of leaders you see in politics, especially at the moment, I suppose, you get a very insulated group of people who are almost intimidated to go against the prescribed leader. And that closet thinking really just reduces the value of the team.
That's correct.
So courage and listening, as you say, are very important qualities of leadership. And I think leadership is all about setting standards of behaviour and performance and then modelling those so that the people that you're responsible for developing and leading replicate those sorts of behaviours.
Absolutely. And that's what builds culture. So it starts from the top, it starts from the lead team, and modelling it as a leader, so being authentic and leading into where your gaps are and where your strengths are, and being really open and honest about that and how you're feeling and how that might be influencing how someone is receiving you today. Then building that team and creating that environment where they can bring their thoughts and views to the table and everything that makes them who they are. And I love the quirkiness of people, and you sort of understand their tells, and when you get into a close team, you see that. And then the final piece of that with individuals as well is then developing them, because development is not you're in a box and you stand still. Development is an ongoing process that is really important to sort of understand where people want to be and where, what they want to learn and how they want to grow, and how do you facilitate that as a leader so that they can continue to move and grow and develop. And I'm a lifelong learner. I only did one formal degree. I haven't done an MBA or anything like that, but I am constantly reflecting on what I've learnt from different experiences and how I can improve. And I do that with my team as well. And it's a constant process, and I will do that until the day I die.
Yeah. You've got to be curious, don't you?
You do.
And you've got to treat yourself as a work in progress.
Yes.
You're constantly, hopefully, improving yourself. You mentioned authenticity a little while ago. Tell me this. What happens if your authentic self is not particularly attractive or inspiring to other people? Let's say you find yourself in a leadership role, but you need to role play, you need to pretend in certain aspects. How difficult or challenging is that?
I suppose one example of this is where engaging particularly with external stakeholders, that in order to connect, and it's one of my superpowers, is connecting with people and listening really carefully to them to then get curious about where they're coming from. And for me, that's still authentic, because it's not about you talking, because that's not what an engagement or a conversation is about. What I learnt this one really strongly when I spent time in Serbia. I was in Serbia for 3 years, and I learnt that you need to listen very, very carefully to what someone's saying, particularly if there's a lot that is being said, and also when it's in an accent and not always easy. So you've got to really listen, which is hard when it's a 10-minute sort of monologue. Listening is hard, so being really present and listening. But it's amazing when you do that and you're in your head, you're like, I am listening to understand. I'm not listening to respond or rebut or try and form in my mind what I'm going to say back to you. You're just listening to really understand where they're coming from. And what I learnt through that is the next question. And this is the modelling of that their view will be different from mine, their approach is different from mine, but I'm really interested about where that comes from. So what did you mean by that when you said this little bit here? And it's amazing when you ask that follow-up question, what might come out, because it sits below the surface. So it's about engaging into difference. I still think that's authentic me. It's just adapting the way and the way that I'm engaging with that person to understand where they're coming from, because you have to understand that. And that might be, if you put that to external stakeholders, it might be with an NGO and they've got a very different view. You're still being authentic, but I'm listening really carefully to your point of view because I want to understand it and it's different to mine. So that, I think, is the power of listening and understanding. And I now, when someone, particularly uranium, I'm a uranium bull. I think, the world needs more uranium. I'm here to deliver it. When someone says to me, I don't really believe in that, I'm like, I would have in the past, so old Marnie would have said, well, I don't really like you because you don't share my view. Now I'm like, I want to talk more to you. Come to my office. Let's sit down. I really want to understand where your view comes from, because that will adjust my view and temper my view and give me a different perspective
and
that I might not have
perhaps
seen.
that transition in yourself reflects increased maturity and confidence in yourself and comfort within being who you are.
Yeah. And willingness to adjust my view as well. That was the other thing. In sort of 20 years ago, if you'd asked anyone that worked for me, they'd say it's really hard to change her mind once her view is set. Now I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm like hugely adaptable. Like, I'm not going to flip-flop on a view, but I'll definitely listen to others and build that into my sort of framework about how I'm looking at things. And in a world like we have today where things are constantly evolving and changing, if you're not doing that, you're going to fall backwards.
I love what you said earlier. Listening is about trying to understand someone's alternative point of view, not positioning yourself to win a debate.
Absolutely.
And I think listening is a real art. And not many people are really good at it. But I suppose in your situation, both as a board director and an executive, your job is to ask the right questions. Certainly as a board director, you need to ask the executives the right questions so they can go and find the answers and solve the problems. And that's one of the qualities of leadership, particularly at the board level, isn't it?
And those questions, it absolutely is. And those questions, when you are listening to someone to understand and you ask them a question, they'll pick up on the emotion and the intent behind that really quickly, versus a question that you might be just trying to catch them out. Yes. So it really changes the intent of it and the other person's experience of being listened to. And that's the most important thing, because then as a director, when they go away to have a look at it, they know that was really coming out of curiosity and intent, and a positive intent, not I'm here to catch you out.
That's right. And you begin to build trust with them, don't you? Because, as you say, you're not asking gotcha questions. You're asking questions that will get to the bottom of a problem or a dilemma that needs to be solved.
Yeah.
Trust earning is clearly important in leadership. I've always thought that to build a trusting relationship, you need to be credible. In other words, you need to know what you're talking about. You need to be reliable. You need to be able to follow through with commitments you make. You need a certain level of intimacy or familiarity with someone beyond the workplace and into the whole holistic part of their life. Yeah. And you also need to be selfless. You need to be able to put people ahead of your own short-term interests to advance the relationship. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with all of those. It's the selfless part is absolutely part of a leader's job, and it's one of my icks is when someone is personally motivated, not motivated for their team and the company and the best thing for shareholders, and that really gets to me because it's really it's not something that I respond positively. So probably one where my authentic self really comes out because I don't like it and I don't respect it. So for me, it's absolutely about being selfless with your team, leading by example, noticing things. And when you know your team, they walk in the morning and you have a look at them and you say, okay, something's up. Just by the way they're holding their head, the way they're walking, and just going and checking in on them and asking, how are you, is a really powerful question to then open up for them to share how they're feeling. And it might be something personal or something work-related. They might not want to share, but the fact that you've shown care and empathy to them goes a long way. And you get that imbalance. The power of good leadership is getting that discretionary effort out of people. And it's not about saying we want you to work 16 hours a day. Yeah. It's about how committed and effective they are in what they do. And if you have people that are absolutely giving every little bit of discretionary effort into achieving team objectives and goals, it's a wonderful output. But you have to be selfless in order to get that.
You do. And it's amazing what you can achieve when you don't care who gets the credit and you support people and give them ownership of their productivity and their solution.
And to be honest, it's actually about putting them in front of you and giving everyone that is the beneficiary of that great work, visibility of who's actually doing the work, because that's part of building potential and succession is it's not Marnie, it's a team, and this team is a wonderful team, and we all bring something to the table.
Correct. And as a leader, you need to share with people your vulnerabilities, don't you?
Yes.
Your deficiencies, because that again will engender trust-based relationships.
Absolutely, yes.
What are some of the key challenges of your current role as the MD of DevEx, Marnie? And how is your success measured in this relatively small company at this stage?
Well, success is measured through creating shareholder value. Absolutely. That's the scorecard. The challenges. So the team and I have worked on an aspirational vision to be a £10 million producer of uranium. And the market goes, you don't even have any pounds in the ground yet. So the challenge is actually realising that vision. We've got really solid plans and pathways to do that. So the challenge is delivering to that vision. We know how we want to do it. It's just executing that pathway. And uranium market's small. Opportunities are harder to find, but it's persistence. It's building relationships and trust across the industry that is really important, and with your investor base. And that was the part coming into this role that I hadn't done before. I'd never been the lead of an ASX-listed company, and it's a bit I've really enjoyed. I love building relationships. I love understanding why an investor's invested in DevEx and what they're looking for from me, and communicating with them to make sure that I'm always understanding where their heads are at and how they're feeling about what we're doing. Because ultimately we're there to deliver value to our shareholders and to do the right thing by the company, and that really sits nicely with me. So it's I'm loving it. It's great.
Yeah, I can tell. It's been said you need to win in the workplace before you can win in the marketplace. So how do you go about, in this small company you're in at the moment, DevEx, how do you go about winning the hearts and minds of your people? And what are the competitive edge qualities that you're seeking in your people?
So the winning in the workplace has been around alignment of where we're going. So when I arrived, DevEx had a number of different opportunities on the plate, but we've decided as a team to be laser focused on uranium, which was an interesting conversation with Mr. Goyder, who loved to find like different deals that we could do to throw assets into DevEx that we could look at, and that was across copper and gold and lots of other different areas. So, but he's absolutely supportive of us. So getting everyone aligned on what our ambition is, how we're going to do it. So that team strategy, which was a wonderful exercise. Getting to know people and sharing my vulnerabilities and understanding them and where, what they are afraid of, what they hope for. So having conversations around that, and then regularly communicating with the broader team about what we're up to. So it's a very small team, but we do get together and say, this is what we're up to, and being as transparent as we can with the broader team about what's going on, and supporting the work, particularly with the exploration team. We're about to start drilling in the Northern Territory. We're very excited about that. And it's supporting that team to be successful in this drill program, and to have all the support around them that they need so they can focus on getting those drill meters and doing the ground survey work that we need to do for the program. So that's internally, and them buying into the energy and passion that we all have around it. And you can feel it in our office. There's a nice buzz. Everyone is really optimistic about the future. And when you're in a market like we are, that we know that uranium is going to be required, and we know we can play a role in that, that's purpose, and everyone's buying into that, which is really wonderful.
You've been a part of very big companies, international companies like Rio Tinto, and now you're in a junior explorer. No matter what type of business or size of business you're in, workplace culture is very important. Yes. Providing a safe and inclusive place for people to realise their talents and potential. So what do you attach to the word culture, and why should a leader pay attention to it?
Culture is critical to everything that you do. And for me, the example of culture is that people do what people do when no one's watching, and how they behave and how they represent themselves in the company. And it's developed through leading by example and from the top. So setting an expectation around behaviours, values, and it's one of the things that was at DevEx but wasn't headline. And they're wonderful values about entrepreneurship and innovation and integrity and respect. They're all beautiful. So we've really brought those to the forefront to say this is who we are. And the team live them every day, and it's wonderful to watch. The biggest one for me with respect is actually around the relationships that the team have formed over the last 10 years with traditional owners in the Northern Territory. And it's a beautiful relationship that they work hard on.
Yes.
But it's felt, it's real. It's not a picture on an ESG or a sustainability report. It's something that is deep and visceral to the team, the importance of that, which is, it's beautiful to see. So it's continued. So there was really good foundations for that at DevEx. I'm just bringing it to life and we're talking about it a lot more because as we grow, you want that culture to then spread through as new starters coming in and they're inducted to what it's like to work at DevEx and what we're expecting in terms of culture. And it is absolutely around achievement and innovation and entrepreneurship, which is wonderful. And the thing that I found, like lots of people ask me why you've gone from Rio Tinto into a junior. What happened here? And for me, Rio Tinto was a wonderful 17 years of my life. I learnt so much and I feel like every experience was almost building my practical MBA to do what I'm doing now. And my ambition and the thing that I've got left to do in my career is to start with a junior uranium explorer and I'm going to build a business. Wow. And with Tim's capital market backing, the wonderful team we have, this great exploration ground we have, and our ambition, we're going to grow a company. And we are going to, and I'm going to create value for shareholders and I want to be able to show that I can do that. I know I can. It's just being able to deliver that. And the foundational 17 years at Rio was a wonderful platform to give me the skills, the experience and know-how to be able to apply that to growing this company. And that lights me up.
I can sense the energy and the drive coming across the table and it's such a good way of expressing your career journey. A lot of people would have thought, okay, you've been the managing director of the battery metals materials business of Rio Tinto. It's time now to leave the executive world and either semi-retire or get a few board gigs. But not you. You've gone straight into the deep end with a junior explorer of a somewhat controversial commodity, but you're going to make a go of it and you're going to be part of the next phase of the energy industry.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good on you. What's one of the, let's talk about industry opportunities and challenges. I ask this question of all of my guests. What would you say is the biggest challenge facing the Australian mining industry today?
It's about meeting the global demand for the commodities that we produce that I talked about earlier around technology and AI, this thirst for lithium and copper and uranium that's going to come from that. Meeting that with a backdrop of a society that still doesn't really like mining. Yeah. That is our challenge. And so how do you do that? Firstly, you have to make that connection and there's good adverts out there talking about it, but when it's nothing against big companies, I've worked for them, but when it's a big company doing that, people go, well, of course you're going to say that because you want to do what you're doing. It's actually everyone's role that works in that industry to explain, no, this is a really important piece of what everyday life requires and to make that connection. But then it's how we show up. How we show up as companies and individuals and really show that we are about shared value. So shared value for communities, for our stakeholders, and we want to do things the right way. It's really, really important that as an industry that we do that collectively because otherwise you end up with where we're at now with over-governed processes because people were doing the wrong thing. And my experience in any process is when something goes wrong, you do a root cause analysis. You say, okay, this bit broke down, so let's just put another process on top, or another permitting schedule, and it just layers and layers, which means that in the end you actually can't do anything, or it really slows progress down. So it's building the trust by doing the right thing that will allow the resource sector in Australia to thrive and continue to then generate the commodities the world needs and that we hopefully will need. Hopefully we can bring some downstream into Australia and do that in a way that creates value and people understand that. And it's generally people within the communities where resource companies work can see that, and they work in it. They get to the sponsorships that come with the sporting teams and, hospitals and all of where the royalties and the taxes go back to. It's actually those on the fringes that are the biggest challenge that don't work in it. And it's all of our job as an industry to do the right thing and to show up in a way that people say, now I understand why it's important.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Just picking up on a couple of things there. I think you're dead right. To get broad-based community support for the mining industry, we need to work harder and be more effective in both education and marketing.
Yeah.
Education, let's get the kids to the mine sites, the processing plants, let them see firsthand what's actually happening and why it's happening. Marketing, people like Warren Pierce and Tanya Constable, both of whom have been on this podcast, are working really hard from a marketing point of view to position the industry and explain why the materials that we get out of the ground are so important for our future. So I think we've got a lot of work to do on that part.
Yeah, and the industry bodies are great with that. So I work closely with both AMEC and the Minerals Council. And it was fabulous to see Amanda Lacaze appointed as the chair of the MCA. I was Tanya mentioned that there was a great announcement coming up the day before, and then I was with Amanda when it was announced, which was wonderful because she is such a great advocate for the industry, and you need personality, and you need, as you said, the resource sector is full of great personalities, and I think she will do some wonderful things in that role, as well as what she's already done with her leadership of Linus.
Yeah, she's a dynamo.
She is.
Let's talk a bit about AI. How are the companies that you've represented in the past and perhaps are representing now, how are they using AI tools to improve the effectiveness and the efficiency of work processes and decision making?
I use AI a lot at DevEx. So it's one of the things that I brought in. So I've been at DevEx for 6 months, and Claude is my best friend. So we have used Claude a lot for understanding sort of dynamic of the industry, but also some modelling. So some of our economic modelling around potential targets and if we explore and find something, what would be, if it was this type of deposit, what would be the economics of that deposit? So really giving us a view of what our future value proposition could be.
Yes.
It has been wonderful for that. And I've shown some analysts at some of the brokers and the banks what we've done, and they look at it and they go, that would have taken us 3 months to build. So it's really, and you definitely have to check it. There's a lot of conversation that go on between Claude and I when I go through and I check it and I say, are you sure about that? Oh yeah, whoops, I made a mistake. So you absolutely have to check it and verify it. But the framework that it produces quickly that enables you to then flex and adjust to come up with a product is wonderful when you're a small company. So we use it a lot, and there's now a Claude license across as a team that we have at DevEx that we use.
Yeah.
More broadly, it's something that I believe it's been interesting. You see the view of some companies where they see AI as a threat. So if you treat AI as a threat and therefore don't do anything with it other than block it, it just comes in anyway. So it's actually more of a threat because then it inadvertently comes in through other ways because people go off their company platform, use it and then bring things in, and suddenly you don't have control of your data. So I believe it's really, really important for companies to take a position on AI, to have a really set policy on it, to know what platform it is and listen to employees about what their needs are and what they want to use it for to make sure the platform's useful and they know how to use it. So, because it's part of the future, and if you ignore it, you'll get left behind. It'll be a Kodak moment for companies if they don't engage with it.
I think you're dead right. The genie's out of the bottle, so there's no point, if you have apprehensions or you're scared of it, you need to understand how to use it and hopefully get some broad-based, support within your organisation for it. What are the downsides, though, Marnie, of deploying AI technologies?
It's not managing it well. So number one is not having a very clear deployment strategy where you can be very sure that you're protecting data, particularly when you're using confidential data, and not listening to the needs of what your teams want to use it for, because a lot of people are using it at home and then they're going to work and saying, well, I'm not allowed to use this platform. So understanding what their needs are and how they would like to use it so your platform is meeting the use case. And there's some people that talk about AI replacing people and what the threat is of that in the future. I've always believed that the AI is replacing routine work that is replicable and therefore can go into an AI platform. But doesn't that just open up people's worlds to doing creative work and thinking and showing empathy? And there's all these other skill sets that humans have that are brought to life through that. And so it's becoming more of a tool. I would almost say that Claude is a member of our leadership team at DevEx. So he I don't know. Yeah. He's a core part of what we do, and we use it a lot. But we know the shortfalls, just like you do with a team member. We know you're not very good on good on your accuracy and where you draw data from, so we're going to question it. But the framework and the way you set it up is wonderful, and you do it quickly. So recognizing strengths and weaknesses. I think with AI, it's understanding that and where you want to use it and how, and ensuring that it's a platform that is one that everyone can use and doesn't. My fear is it actually differentiates people and people feel left behind, and you can't have that. So you've got to try and make it so that everyone's on that same starter case, and it's not making people feel alienated, because that's the risk as well.
Yeah.
And then over time, you've just got to evolve. So what we're talking about, listening and curiosity, it's really seeing how it's evolving and how it can be used, and what are the gaps that it can't do, and how do you sort of adjust the skills of your workforce, because it's not about replacing people necessarily. It's about skills adjustment that will support that. And and for the resources sector, AI can't actually move iron ore from the Pilbara to the port. You still need a physical asset to do that. There's still a physical asset company that requires people around it, so it can't actually do that work itself.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, we use it in our industry increasingly as well, but you'll never replace the humanity of people.
Right. People like human connection.
They do indeed.
Yeah.
And establishing trust and showing empathy, these are the very human, unique things that we can offer. And hopefully, most people will be able to adjust and adapt. Sure, there'll be some people that can't, sadly, and I think they'll be the victims of the technology rise. But, it is inevitable that it will go forward and it will increase. So we've just got to learn to live with it and utilise it.
And know how, know which platforms to utilise and which ones to be wary of.
That's right. You and I are both champions of diversity and fairness and inclusion. In some parts of the world, it's DEI, as it's referred to, is being very much challenged and undermined. And in the US particularly, hard fought for legislation has been wound back. What's your point of view on this? And will the anti-woke movement that seems to be surging in parts of the Northern Hemisphere, will it continue to spread in Australia?
I always come back to the fundamental aspects of human beings, and to have respect for each other, and to have curiosity about everyone's upbringings and where they've come from and their points of view, because that's what makes for really strong countries. And I feel that when you label a movement, or it just brings a whole bunch of politicisation to it. And the fundamental aspect is a community in Australia is a wonderful fabric of different backgrounds and thoughts and upbringings that just make us a wonderful country. And it's respecting that and not letting some of the campaigns sort of glaze how we might look at certain people, and get really curious about what they bring and who they are. And I do struggle with it being labelled. I think it's come fundamentally down to communities and the fact that we are a wonderful nation, and that comes from where we all come from. And there's such a diverse group of people in our country.
Yeah, I agree. And we're all different, but as long as we've got a shared core of common values that we all agree to support and live by, I think that's the main thing. Doesn't matter where you come from, what colour your skin is, what religion. Correct. You will always have a very broad set of values in the community, but there needs to be a subset of those values that we agree are important to live in Australia.
And how much of that is actually more around purpose, which we are all really proud to be Australians, and we want a strong Australia, and that's, we want this to endure. So having, you talk to a lot of the community members, and they might look different, but I'm an Aussie and I've brought a lot to this country, and I'm really proud to be a part of it. And that sense of pride about being Australian and what we stand for is quite a wonderful trait that we don't talk about enough.
Well said. Here's the fun part of the conversation, the rapid fire questions. We do live in a troubled world, Marnie. What gives you hope?
Oh, my children. Their curiosity, their resilience, just wonderful human beings.
Yeah. What's a big risk the world is not paying enough attention to?
Underestimating the need for resources for the future.
Looking through your rear vision mirror, what accomplishment to date are you most proud of?
Oh, gosh. I think the transition from Rio into DevEx and having the courage to do that, because there was a lot of ego that stepped in the way to say, how will people view you? So having the courage to do that, and now being on the pathway to prove that I can do it.
Yeah, terrific. Looking ahead, what personal or career boxes do you have left to tick?
Oh, personal, I really would love to be a grandmother. Not yet, kids, but
No pressure.
I love babies, and I'm looking forward to being a grandmother.
Yeah.
Career is definitely building a uranium company in DevEx and showing what the team and I can do.
Yeah. What talent do you have that you're not using?
I use them every day. Like it's something, maybe currently at the moment, I do have learnt. I think I'm quite good at. I'm usually really humble, so it's hard for me to say that. Leading big teams, so knowing how to lead leaders of leaders of leaders and set culture. So small company now, there's a talent that I can definitely use in the future as we grow. So that talent.
Accepting that we're all a work in progress, what's an aspect of your leadership that you're most keen to improve?
Oh, gosh. I'm always improving. That's what I said. Like I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always reflecting. I'll reflect after this podcast to say, what could I have done better? So I'm always learning. It has been around investor relations coming into that role. I'm always curious and ask for feedback about how things are going and how messages are landed. So I'm always trying to improve myself.
What inspires or energizes you?
Teams, people achieving their goals and their passions and seeing them thrive and being in flow. I love that. Love seeing that.
And what drains you of energy?
Egos and personal motivations just getting in the way of doing the right thing really makes me angry.
What's your inner monologue like? We all talk to ourselves. I certainly do. Do you tend to be hard on yourself, or are you kind and do you flatter yourself?
I'm very hard on myself. My monologue used to be, I'm trying to adjust it, is I'm not good enough. So it probably links to the constant improvement and trying to be better. Yeah. So I'm working on that, but it's still not being good enough.
What's your media diet like? In other words, how do you keep yourself informed every day?
I read newspapers, social media. X, I've started getting curious on X. That's interesting. There's some weird things out there. I listen to the radio, but it's not media. But the other thing I do to keep informed, I love hearing, once again, this is about different perspectives. If there's a chief economist or someone in town, I always love to go and hear what their perspective is on the world and how things are going, and sort of meshing what I'm hearing together with my data points to say what might that look like. So lots of different ways of learning and keeping current.
Who would be a leader, living or deceased, that you'd really like to have a conversation with, and what would be the most important question you'd ask them?
Definitely. Just recently with SpaceX, I would love to talk to Elon Musk. I've been to his workshop, unfortunately, to his office in the US, and unfortunately he wasn't there the day I was there, so I didn't get to meet him.
Is this the Tesla or the
Tesla?
SpaceX?
This was Tesla, so this is in battery materials days.
Wow.
I would love to ask him, particularly now, for him to say, looking back at your 20-year-old self, what advice would you give yourself? And did you ever think you'd be doing what you're doing now? The way his vision and how that's evolved and how his thinking has evolved.
Yeah.
His brain is incredible. So really understanding that and what he would have said to his 20-year-old self, knowing where he is now. What advice would he have given himself?
He is such an interesting person, isn't he? I don't know whether I like him or dislike him. Clearly a highly driven, highly intelligent person, extremely quirky. You do wonder how balanced he is mentally at times.
Yeah.
But to become very shortly, apparently, the world's first trillionaire.
Yeah.
And this new IPO of his company is just amazing.
It is. It's incredible. So the brain, the vision in that, and you need to be a little bit crazy to do visionary things. And I'd really like to understand how that's evolved and what he would say to his 20-year-old self, because, he's incredible.
I heard him on the news the other day saying that it won't be in his lifetime, but shortly after his lifetime, there'll be 1 million people living on Mars.
Yeah.
There will be a civilization on Mars.
Yeah.
Part of that worries me because his argument is, look, eventually we'll destroy planet Earth.
No.
It won't be worth living on. So we need to find an alternative now before it's too late. So, talk about visionary.
Yeah.
It's just
and
amazing.
How does he pass that on as well? Who carries on his vision? I'm curious about that.
Correct, yeah. Well, apparently he's got about 15 kids.
Interesting names.
Of a number of relationships. Yes. And he says it's just promulgating the genes, so that who knows?
Who knows?
Oh, it's bizarre.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the best career or business advice you've ever been given, and who gave it to you?
A few really good bits of advice. One is sometimes in order to build your career and learn something that you don't already have, so a new skill set or experience, you have to go back to go forward. And that's one I've definitely shared. I mentor and coach and champion a lot, and I often, when people are saying, I want to leave and I want to be promoted to this, I'm like, sometimes you have to go back to sort of build that experience and that reputation to be able to go forward. So one of my manager who promoted me to my first superintendent role taught me that. And he's still a mentor for me today. I actually only had lunch with him last week. That one, I think also being okay with in the same theme, being at the same level, but consolidating your experience and your skill set so you're building a whole person. And you're not, and your whole sort of being of particularly, I spent 10 years at general manager at Rio Tinto, and that was a really important foundational part of my career where I built all of these different aspects that then enabled me to be a successful MD, and not doing that too early. That was a really important part of my career as well. So just being a little bit patient, but continuing to learn and grow and be challenged in different commodities and learning different things, but not always chasing the promotion, because the promotion doesn't necessarily bring you happiness. It's the work that you do and feeling fulfilled by it and being ready for it.
It's interesting you say being prepared to take a step back to move forward. That takes courage.
Yeah, I've done it about 3 times in my career, and they were the best steps I made.
Final question, Marnie. What advice would you give your 20-year-old self to help you lead a better quality life?
You are enough, but I wouldn't have listened to it.
Look, it's been a delight having you on the program. We've learned something about your career and your ambitions going forward with DevEx, but we've also importantly learned more about you as a person. And you're coming across to me as a great conversationalist, and I would imagine your engagement of your people is one of your core strengths on top of your technical abilities. Yeah. And I think Raoul's got a harder act to follow now, to be honest.
Shall we call him Roy?
Roy, let's call him Roy. He'll probably deny the invitation now that he's after he's listened to you on the podcast. Marnie, thanks very much. All the best to you.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to Hearts and Minds. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave us a rating or share it with a friend. And don't forget to follow us and connect on social media for updates on all of our upcoming guests. I'm Alana Bray-White, and I look forward to you joining us for our next episode.